Well, fence seems like it's a never-ending job. Here on the farm where we keep most of our cattle, a lot of the fencing is high tensile electric, and electric fence has its ups and downs. You know, it works great when it works, and it doesn't work at all when it's not working.
Oh, Brendan is out fixing and building fence. Again. It seems that there is always new fence that needs to go up, and always old fence that needs some attention. But let's see if Brendan has found a new way to make the process faster, easier, and better in the long run. Have you ever tried cat's claws? Do you want to try them? If so, stay tuned for a discount code.
This high tensile electric fence was put in, I don't know, 15 plus years ago, and these plastic insulators, I guess they're great when they work, and when they don't work, they're awful. We spend a lot of time, you know, the sun degrades the plastic or whatever, but we spend a lot of time replacing these stupid insulators. Now on a T-post, it's not that big of a deal. You know, you pop the old one off, you pop the new one on, pretty much good to go. Where the wire's attached to these pipe posts, well, obviously the insulator has to be attached to the post, so they're screwed in with self-tapping screws. Now that's okay, but as you can see, on this particular insulator right here, because of the force the wire applies, you know, especially around a curve or a corner, even just on a straight post, it broke the center of this insulator out. So obviously that wire is now grounded to the post. The options are kind of limited. I can't just put a new insulator on because the old one's in the way. So I've got to break that one off. The screws typically break off, and so now you don't have a flat surface, and it's 2 screws per insulator, and don't get them too tight because then the plastic will crack anyway. Anyway, it's a pain. But I think I've found time will tell, but I think a good solution that'll make this easier, maybe not easier right now, but easier to repair these in the future. And I'll show you what I've got. So we've been using these cat's claws fasteners. They're kind of a staple replacement, so to speak, but they're so much more than a staple. You know, they've got the softwoods variety that's for your typical pine posts, treated posts, that kind of thing. Then they have the hardwoods option that uses a different screw that works better for hardwoods, which we use around here a lot. Hedge posts, right? Osage orange, Bodark, whatever you want to call it. It's really hard wood. So they have both those products that cover pretty much, you know, most situations, except for here. Now, they still have a solution, and it's essentially the same product, but with self-tapping screws. I wanted a few of these to try myself, and I forgot to grab the self-tapping screws from them, so I went and bought my own, which is no big deal. If you want these, you need to contact their company directly. I think the variability in a pipe post, you know, if somebody's using a lined drill stem, well, you're not going to have very good luck with self-tapping screws. You're going to break them off and have other issues. Or if the pipe is overly thick, you know, same situation. So I think they'd like you to contact them if you do want to order even just the tabs or ears, whatever you want to call it, or the ears with the screws, self-tapping screws, self-drilling screws, because they'd like to see what your situation is and make sure that they're going to work for you and not just sell you a product and then you say, well, that didn't work, and they go, well, you know, you bought them. So they'd like to make sure that the product's going to work for your situation, or maybe give you some advice on what types of screws that you would use. Anyway, I want to get to my solution to this mess. Now, obviously, I can't just put this into the post and secure my wire because it's a hot wire. So it's going to ground directly to that post and fence isn't going to work. But check this out. I grabbed a bag of these, they called a wood post insulator. I'm going to use it on metal, but basically it's just a plastic tube that the wire would go through and insulate it from whatever's around it. Now, I think you can get these that have a slit cut in the top. I don't know for sure. These don't. So obviously I don't want to disconnect this fence and run this tube all the way down. But they actually cut pretty easy. So if I was smart, you know, a real small set of like side cutters would probably do it. I'm out here, I don't I don't have that, don't have those on me. But I think if I use a set of lineman's pliers to hold it, and if I do this gently enough, they actually aren't that hard to cut. Now, I say that and I'm probably gonna cut my finger off, but kind of just slide the knife, it might be easier just hold it with my hand. Keep the knife at an angle so you don't dig in the other side. Here's down one side. It's as safe or dangerous as you let it be, I guess. Okay. We've got a very ugly slit all the way down. All the way down this thing. All right. So, you know what they say, don't get bloody, cut toward a buddy. So, you know, be smart with your knife. But this actually, if I can bring this in, it's actually pretty easy to slip this over this high tensile wire. Once you get it started, it kind of just rolls over the top of it. Like that. Okay, here's what I've got. I've got the ears that come from cat's claws. And I grabbed some screws. And these are a 12 by 1.5. They're really, probably a number 10 screw would be better. I don't know, these fit kind of tight. It works fine. You just deal with it and get it going. Okay, I'll put that about where I want the wire. All right, fasteners in. Now I'm going to take this sleeve. It's a little bit tight with this particular brand. Slide it underneath the cat's claw, you might say. And then just kind of cinch it up. It doesn't need to be super tight. I don't want to compress that sleeve, just enough where it can't slide side to side. That's it. So check that out. So instead of dealing with pins and plastic that degrades, and then when it does degrade, it leaves me with this mess that I've got to remove, and then I've got to get the screws out, replace it, have twice the screws, and need a new insulator. Not to mention these pins that hold the wire in the insulator break. So I have a whole handful of those pins just to replace I carry around. That's it. So here's what I'm thinking. if this does degrade over time and I have to replace it, all I got to do is loosen that screw, just loosen it, slide the old one out, cut my new one, slide it back on, tighten the screw. That's it. And it's, you know, it allows that wire to slide. I don't know why this isn't going to be a better solution. So I would venture to say, even the cat's claws people hadn't thought of that yet. Their normal product is good enough, but when it solves that issue, I'm happy. Well, I'm out working on a fence brace, relined, refenced around a pen that we use for calving and also wean calves. And it had gotten really bad. There was hot wire around it, and fence that was put in who knows how long ago. Just your typical low carbon field fence. And anyway, so I got some high carbon Stay Tough fencing, similar to what we use on a deer farm. And I really like that stuff. It's a little bit of a pain to work with, but man, it's tough and it stays tight. So another part of that is we have to run the hot wire around part of this pen, even if it's not needed to contain animals in this pen. I don't know if you'll be able to hear all the cattle bawling, but they have acres of grass, and for some reason they want to eat the tools out of my bucket. The hot wire has to go around part of this because that's how the power gets, the fence on another section of the property gets electrified. So I'm just kind of running it along the top of the posts. But I'm trying to, you know, it still has to be contained where it can't blow in the wind or get hooked up on a wire fence or anything that would short out that other section of the property. So as I ran this wire, this was a new wire, I ran it through some more of these insulated sleeves. Man, it's wet and muddy, and this clay is just sticky. This is where these, again, this is a hedge post. And so we've got the hardwood cat's claws fasteners for this. I was talking to a buddy of mine last night who has, I think they have, I don't know, 100 or 150 head of cows. They row crop as well, but he had used these cat's claws fasteners. And he was talking about how much easier it is, especially when you have older hedge posts that have been around for 50 years. They get to be just hard as a rock. And driving a staple in them is just impossible. So he was talking about these fasteners. I said, well, I kind of just stumbled across them, and I'm doing some different things and seeing how they work. And he was talking about the price. He said, they're kind of pricey. But then we sat down and did the math. You know, if you did, you know, a wood post every, I forget if he does 3 or 4 T-posts in his typical barbed wire fence installation. I think he said a bucket will last a quarter mile, or we'll do a quarter mile. So that's like $60 for a quarter mile of fence. I think it's 60, give or take. That's pretty cheap when you figure it's way faster, and without a doubt it's stronger. These things are not going to pull out. The wire's probably going to break first. So, plus you don't hammer your thumbs and you don't have to deal with a mess of staples. Anyway, we'll get this attached real quick. Again, it's just an insulated sleeve. I thought about not turning the fence off to do this, but it's kind of spitting, and I know this fence is hot, so that didn't need to be on camera. Again, I'm just putting this up high so it's out of the way. It's not being used to contain animals in this pen. Let's do it this way. that'll do it. That's all that takes. That was kind of funny. I had a couple of spots where I'd use this on the high tensile electric that you may have already seen in this video. I didn't tell my dad that I had these or that I was trying it, and he was walking that fence line and he ran across it, and he starts asking questions. He goes, "What is that? That's perfect. You know, those stupid insulators that break and sun breaks them down or weather or whatever, where they get so brittle." He goes, "That's perfect. Even if that thing fails, you know, you just slide out the old one, slide in a new one, tighten it back down, and you're good." I said, "Yeah, that was my thought. That wasn't something that I had seen." Now, maybe there's people out there that do that all the time, and I'm the millionth one to figure it out, but it wasn't one of the uses when I first thought about trying these Claws Fasteners. But yeah, it works pretty slick. I'm much happier replacing those insulators with this than the feeling of putting the new insulator on, knowing that 5 years from now I'm going to get to do this again, deal with broken off screws. And anyway, so well, we'll go on to the next use. Again, I think this is pretty slick. So I'll show you what else we can do with them. So let me show you the other trick. Of course, on these braces, I'm not a professional fence builder. I'm not a professional cattle rancher, but I build fences to keep cattle in. So it might not look pretty. It'll keep them in. It's all hedged, so it's last forever. But it's typical H-brace type setup. The thing I haven't done here is add the brace wire or twitch wire, some people call it. And what a lot of people would do is they'll staple. Try to put a picture up of this if I can find it. They'll put a staple in the bottom of your end post, and then toward the top of your brace post. That kind of equalizes loads and whatever. They'll put a staple in, then they'll put a loose staple through that staple so that the wire has a hard surface to ride on. So as you're tightening that wire, it can sort of move back and forth and not just dig into the tree, and you have an uneven pole on the two posts. Again, I don't want to drive staples if I can keep from it. But what I did was, closer, I grabbed this, of course, cat's claw fastener, and just two galvanized nails. Now what I'm going to do is I start this fastener in, and then I'll drop these two nails into the slots on this fastener. So on the back side, it'll kind of look like that. And what that does is then I'll run the wire through the fastener, the brace wire, and it rides on these two nails. Now I'll show you what that looks like. Get it started, drop the two nails in, cinch it down, and that thing is not going to move. Then it gives that hard surface for that brace wire to run around and pull on those nails instead of digging into the wood so bad. Here's one of the completed braces. I ran out of ratcheting strainers, so I can't show you the one we just put that cast claw on. So you can see that brace wire running diagonally. And right there is the setup. And you see how that wire rides on those two nails. instead of just digging into the post. Now we're finally going to use these things for what they're actually designed for. I almost got this fence a little too tight. Well, this would be the more typical installation. Now this brace post is a little bit crooked, so I'll just put a couple in, but this would be your more typical use for these things. Now I've learned one thing. You may need to stabilize this clip as you install them. Don't let your fingers get close to those cat's claws parts, you know, those serrations on the clip, because they will pinch the snot out of your fingers. So just stabilize it on the wide, full diameter section of the claw. Get it up close, pull it tight. Now that's perfect. There's just the right amount of, you know, looseness in that fence. This high tensile, you don't want it. You don't want this wire being forced into the wood. If something were to hit this fence here, it's going to pull this section, you know, tighter, so to speak. Something hits it here, it's going to pull this section tighter. So that is perfect. It's not coming out. No hammer, no busted thumbs, no frustration. No bent over staples I get to pull out and try to drive again. It's just fast. It's fast and easy, and that's what makes this work tolerable. That's gonna be enough on that. I'm not gonna mess with pushing that one in all the way. It's plenty tight. Yeah, those things are pretty slick. You know, on a big job, it would seem like a lot of cost. Mud. It would seem like a pretty big cost if you were doing, you know, 8 miles of fencing or something. But I still think it's worth it, and you know, honestly, I'm just going to keep a couple jugs on hand. I think there's 160 in each, 140, 160, something like that. I'm just going to keep a couple extra jugs on hand for this fence repair, and it seems like they've been useful in so many places, and I'm not trying to find ways to use them. This is just a fence I was building anyway, and I mean, just in this, I've used them here, securing the electric fence. I've used it in your traditional way, securing the wire to a wood post, and I've used it for the twitch wire. I mean, just in this one job, it saved me a ton of time. It's a pretty good product.
Have you ever tried cat's claws? Do you want to try them now? Order from the links in the description and use the promo code BRC Fallow to get free shipping. Cat's Claws is a small, family-owned and operated business in Montana that is dedicated to revolutionizing the installation and maintenance of fencing systems so that you can get your project done easily and quickly with more reliable results. And we believe their product does just that.